2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Over. It's sound activated. This is Stan Tinsley speaking, 23rd day of August, 1990. I'm speaking to Mr. Frank R. Johnson, 4307 McCampbell Lane, Fountain City, Knoxville, Tennessee. Mr. Johnson, when did you join the service?
I was drafted in July of 1982. Went down to Fort Oglethorpe and played in the Army band down there for about 2 weeks, which was an interesting experience. And if I'd been a real piccolo player, I could have probably been the colonel's driver. That was the first day I played in that band. In walked the colonel, and I didn't even bother to get on my feet. I knew better, but he kind of took me by surprise, and he said, "Son, how long you been playing the piccolo?" And I said, "Well, I've been playing ever since I was in the 6th grade," which didn't tell him anything. But the next question he asked me was, "Can you play the solo, the piccolo solo in the Stars and Stripes Forever?" Well, I could. I wasn't that good of a piccolo player, but if I had been able to, I'd have had it made. But anyhow, that was an old regular Army band, and they were going to cut it down to TO strength. And of course, back up there, when after the colonel left, the warrant officer came over, and boy, he really did me out. He says, "The next time the colonel of the post comes in here," he says, "you get on your feet and you stand at attention." But I was a new soldier, and I didn't forgotten my ROTC, I guess. But anyhow, it was a regular Army band, and they were going to cut it down to TO strength, and I heard these old boys that were going to get thrown out and put on KP or whatever. I heard them grumbling in the background, so I figured that wasn't the place I wanted to be. So I went on down to Camp Grant and got my basic training, and I no sooner got basic training and I was bound for Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, to join the 8th Evacuation Hospital to go overseas. And I was on my way overseas November 2nd, and I spent about 3 years overseas, but it was an interesting experience in that I had to be there. And I can remember when we landed at Casablanca, the big French battleship, the Jean Bart, was lying there sort of halfway beached with a hole in the side over as big as a two-car garage, and that's the first time I'd ever seen a big battleship with a hole blown in it. But we got ashore, and there we were in the city of Casablanca, an evacuation hospital with no rope equipment. Somebody stole all of our equipment, so we did what's normally done in the old Army is we went out and stole somebody else's, and we found some Jeeps and some trucks and whatnot to make out with. But we were camped right in down Casablanca almost for a couple of weeks, and then they moved us up to the Antha Hill behind the Antha Hotel, and that's where Roosevelt and Churchill and Stalin and de Gaulle and who else was there? Several of the high-ranking generals came for the Antha conference, and we knew about it. And of course, we were confined to post there for 2 days when all the dignitaries were there. And but I've often thought about that I knew Roosevelt was there and I knew Churchill was there, but they didn't know I was there.
Did you end up in the hospital end of the thing, the medical end?
Well, in that I had pre-med in college, they put me in. They just put me in the medical corps.
I see.
I mean, that was where I was pegged, and then too, I had typing experience, and that's how I wound up in the headquarters section.
I see. Okay.
But that was good to have. I'm looking for my diary. I had a diary, but it's not of any great importance really. What's this right here?
How old were you when you went into the service?
July 42. I would have been, let's see, I was born in 1920. That made me about 22 years old, you know. So I was, here's what I was looking for, pictures.
Yeah, we'll go over those.
Pardon?
We'll go over those when we
Yeah,
get
there's
through.
some there that My diary must be stuck somewhere else. Huh? I've got it somewhere, I know. I thought I put it with this stuff here. There's a lot of stuff here. Here's pictures I haven't even cataloged. I think this is somebody else's set that I got it set up. Yeah, I know. These were taken down at Camp Grant. Which I hadn't even looked at these now.
Okay, let's go on with this.
Okay, where are we?
You were in Casablanca.
Yeah, I was in Casablanca by about the 18th of November. And I spent Christmas overseas, 42. My wife sent me a beautiful Jules Jurgensen wristwatch, and never heard of the Jules Jurgensen, but there was an old boy there from Chicago that had worked in a drugstore, and they had a department. He said, "Man, that's a good Swiss watch," and it was a good watch. I wore it out. Of course, I worked several after I got home from the war, but I didn't know what I had even.
What was that? Christmas of 42?
It was 42.
42.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then you had people from all parts of the country in your unit there.
Yeah, we surely did. We had a bunch of Pennsylvania boys. We had some Polak boys. I remember one old boy, Mort Barra. He could play the violin. I mean, he was a concert pianist, but you wouldn't know it to look at him. He's a great, big, tough-looking Polak, you know. But then he can make that violin talk. And the way we found out that, to a bar one night, and there was some guy there that had a violin, and he just sort of asked him to let him have it, you know, and he started playing, and he had everybody spellbound with his music. But I think that perhaps the funniest thing, we had one poor old Polak boy in our outfit that we'd been overseas 11 months, and his wife had a baby. And he had a hard time figuring that one out. And I never did want to tell him, so I left that to somebody else.
I guess that happened more than...
It may have.
More than once.
It just may have. We're not recording of it.
Tell me again what unit you were a part of.
Well, I was in the 8th Evacuation Hospital, which was part of 5th Army. And we may have gone into Africa as part of 5th Army, or I don't really know, because when we really got with 5th Army was when we went up through it. But we pretty well served as a general hospital there at Casablanca.
Okay, let's see, where did you go now? Into Italy after you left
we went
North Africa?
Yeah, we overran. We went over on a British troop ship, and boy, was that ever filth. Telling you what, first afternoon we'd laid in the dirt there for all day trying to get boarded, and finally they boarded us about 4 o'clock, and we hadn't had anything to eat. We were hungry and dusty, but we went through that British mess, and so help me, they handed everybody a tin can and a tin plate, and they dumped your food plate and the coffee in the can, and when you got through, you went around and dipped that plate in a lukewarm bucket of water, and everybody wiped their plate with the same towel. And so help me, when we hit the beer at Salerno, everybody had diarrhea. And boy, we dug those slit trenches. You looked like a big mole had been through there. But we got over it. But I never will forget that. And we had to come off that boat down the side on a ladder with our packs on our backs, where they would just give us some training, or that was the way we had to do it. But that's the way we did it. And I never will forget when we hit the beach there. There was a German plane. It looked like I think it was a 2-motor. It might have been a jump. but it was down right there in the field close to us, and we had to be very cautious about landmines because the Germans had left a few around, and fact is we had a casualty or two come in, but we weren't able to set up as in the hospital when we hit the beach there at Salerno because our supply ship had been torpedoed about 20 miles off the coast, and it went down. And interestingly enough, there was about 4 guys in our motor pool that were on board that supply ship, and they went back on there supposedly to help some of the wounded off, but boy, there was a bunch of good-looking Navy sailors and everything else showed up around the motor pool 2 days later. But those boys got the Silver Star, which they should have gotten, but I cut the orders for those Silver Stars, and General Clark came down to the camp up in Italy a little ways when this took place. But he came down to our camp one day and awarded those Silver Stars with some pomp and circumstances. But I remember that because we had a colonel then that he was an old timer, and about the only thing to get him away. Well, we used to about the only thing to get him out of it was a general or another drink. But we also had a Roman Catholic chaplain, that Father Murph, and he was we used to say that Father Murph was always communing with his spirits because he was drunk half the time. But that outfit was a drinking outfit, and we had a reputation for everybody getting drunk the night before we moved, and then we'd move faster than any outfit in 5th Army of that nature, and you'd be set up and ready to go the next day, and maybe move 90 miles. And we wouldn't move that far. We'd be 30 miles. We did move about 90 one time when we got on off there in northern Italy in Full Valley. But it was an interesting outfit because, of course, we had doctors and nurses and enlisted personnel, and we had 7 or 8 operating tables going most of the time when we were on a push. Didn't do it all the time, but it was a crack outfit, and it was well respected because it was activated by the University of Virginia, actually in World War I, reactivated in World War II, and it was a tough outfit.
How long were you in Italy?
Well, I was in Italy a little over 2 years. I went from Salerno to the Alps.
Where were you when D-Day came?
I was up there in northern Italy at Verona. Yeah, I was at Verona. And no, I was way on up there at Garda with 5th Army when D-Day came, and I had 74 points. And so they didn't send me overseas. A lot of the guys in our outfit got sent off to Japan, and they didn't ever get out there. They were on the boat about 50 some odd days, and went out there and got close and turned around and came back. But guys like me that was that close to 75 points, they didn't bother us. And of course, I think they needed me there at 5th Army headquarters anyhow.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I don't really know.
Let's see. When did you get back to the States?
I got back in late October. 45.
45.
Yeah.
And when was the war in Europe over?
The war in Europe was over in April, early April.
Early April.
45. Yeah. Yeah. When those old boys surrendered up there at the bunker.
Yeah. What did they have you doing between April and the time?
Well, we weren't doing a whole lot then, but because we still had a certain amount of paperwork to do and records to keep, and then I know the German prison camps, or the German prisoners that were pouring into that area, kept the 5th Army personnel pretty busy keeping them and all that stuff. But a lot of it was just make work. We found something to do.
You weren't actually in so-called Army of Occupation where you
Not
was
really,
waiting
not really.
to go on?
I guess maybe it was, but I never had thought about that.
What memories do you have of the men who served with you?
Well, I've got a lot of memories. I think about my little buddy, Johnny Horwath. He was a Pennsylvania coal miner, and John was a good egg, and he lost his life in an accident after the war was over. We sent an ambulance tail down the road one night to do something, and there was a pile of rock, just loose gravel on the side of the road, and the ambulance hit that and turned over. And John, I've always missed him. I never contacted his parents or anything, and I've often wished that I had. But he was strictly a good friend. And then there was a fellow from out about Denver. There was an older man, and Rush Ray Z. I remember him quite well. And I was in Denver once in 1962, and I got a hold of Rush's wife, and I was out there to a Kiwanis convention. I asked him to come down and have dinner with me one night, but he didn't show up, so I didn't know whether Rush wanted to forget about it or what. But and there was a fellow by the name of Anderson that I had a lot of association with. He came from his people were rubber manufacturers in Akron, Ohio. He was pretty well to do, but he was just sort of a guy that was easy to get along with. Of course, most of these men were older than me, and the fellow that I think most highly of, though, was our master sergeant. He got sent home when he turned 48, but like a daddy or an older brother to me, and we have stayed close all these years. I talked to him on the phone just the other day. He's in Wichita Falls, Texas. He was a successful person, and but he's 85 now, and he has very serious emphysema, and so he got this oxygen equipment that he carries around, and we had to go to a reunion this month at Charlottesville, Virginia, and I had been looking forward to it, but he called me and told me he just wasn't going to be able to go. So he has a daughter out there that's at one of the colleges, and teaches at one of the colleges. Her husband teaches at one of the colleges, and they have a nice van, and they were going to take him up there in the van, but when he elected not to go because he couldn't, I just thought, well, I don't believe I want to go, and I called him. I probably missed our last reunion. We've had one every 5 years since the end of the war, and I've made several of them. But my friend Horace Downing wasn't going to be there. It sort of took some of the zip out of it for me.
What do you remember most about your overseas?
Well, I remember that it got to be kind of routine and boring sometimes, and of course I was lucky that I was in the headquarters section where I had access to a typewriter, and we used to even play a little bridge there. There was an older fellow there from Kansas that taught us to play bridge. We'd have a good bridge game sometimes, and we even rigged us up a little photograph developing place. We'd get the stuff out of the X-ray. Of course, we had X-ray equipment, and they'd print our film for us, and of course we were doing this on the QT. And then we had a little place where we could print our own pictures, and we did some of that. But I guess some of the highlights that I remember is that it was raided Casablanca there one night. Well, it was New Year's Day or New Year's morning, 1943, and they had about 6 big bombers over, and boy, we threw up everything but the kitchen sink. And I don't think we've hit anything yet, but that's the first time I'd ever seen an air raid, and of course everybody was on an ambulance detail in our outfit, and when we got sent right down on the docks, and I stand out there looking up and started hearing all this stuff raining down these open coal cars, and I thought, golly, bomb, some of this stuff could hit me in the head. So I got under one of the cars, but they'd catch those planes in the lights. These big lights, and then that ICAC could go off there, but those planes, it seems like it just kept moving and they'd move out of them. But I saw them shoot one down one night. When we got on up above Naples, we were on the Volturno River, and that was pretty hotly contested. And the Germans raided Naples ever so often, and that was an interesting thing to see. But I saw him hit one night, and he came down in a fiery circle. And then one morning, on up in northern Italy, we heard all machine gun fire, and here comes these two Spits after a two-motor German plane. And that plane's just flying along there as straight as anything. Those Spits are coming in at him, bottom and top, and all of a sudden they hit him, and he starts spinning, and he comes straight down. And some of our boys went down there, and I didn't go down there to the scene of the crash, but some of them went down there, and they found a hand with fingernail polish on it. So apparently there was a woman on that plane, or there was a man on there with his fingernails polished. I don't know what, but I remember that quite vividly. And but we used to. Of course, we were pretty close to being strafed one time. We were right on the main road when we got above Naples. Well, actually, we were above Caserta. Now, Caserta was an interesting, because that was where the Royal Italian Air Corps School was based. And there was a big, fine, beautiful big palace there, and it's historically known, the palace at Caserta. And we got in there. Of course, the Germans had gone through first and stripped the souvenirs, and then the British had come right behind them, and then we came along. They didn't leave us many souvenirs, but we were down there one afternoon, had a truck, and got up on the third floor of this place, and here was all this china and crystalware. Well, a lot of those guys didn't care anything about something definite. That appealed to me because the china, or the crystal had Mussolini's crest etched on it, and some of it went back to World War I. And so I took me up a whole bunch of that stuff, and I had some boxes. And the fact is, I got 109 pieces of it home. I've got it in a case in here, and it's a prize souvenir. And I've referred to the fact that I liberated it, but so help me, we were carrying that stuff out and putting it on the 6x6, and this Italian official was jumping up and down, and lo and behold, one of our officers came down and called us, and he says, "What are you guys doing?" And I said, "Well, we're getting this for the officers' mess." He says, "Get all of it." Darn little of it's all the officers' mess. but we had this captain's adjutant, and I gave him a whole bunch of it, so he'd censor the packages, But I got a hundred. I think it was 103 or 109 pieces home, and there were 2 pieces broken. And Mother vowed and declared that the postman dropped the box on the side porch the day that she felt like that's where they got broke. But I had a lot of newspapers, and I wrapped all those pieces in newspaper. And but I want you to see that. Let's just take a look at that right now.
Okay.
That's an unusual souvenir. He went in there to the sewer. He was at Dick Air Force, and but. He had an interesting experience too. But let me see where I want to find my diary. I know where it is. I think. Excuse me just a minute.
All right, yeah. Tell me about when we were parked alongside that
The
prisoner of war
Yeah.
train there. When was that? What happened there?
Well, that would have been. Let's see. That would have been in about September of 1943, when we were fixing to go into Italy with Fifth Army, and we had come up from Casablanca on a troop train, 48s, and we were a long ways from having 40 guys in that car, but we cranked in there, and we came through the Atlas Mountains, and there was a lot of tunnels, and of course that little old steam engine was burning coal, and he poured the black smoke back on us when we hit those tunnels, and I think I'm the one that thought to put her gas mask on. I claim credit for it anyhow, but we put her gas mask on, and that saved us tunnels. When we came on down to the Mediterranean plains, pretty close to Oran, where we were going, we we pulled onto a siding, and this German prison train came down the other track, and they stopped right along our cars, and we were within 2 feet of them, close out and swapping sea rations for souvenirs, and it was an interesting experience because many of those Germans were well educated and spoke good English. And this fellow I was talking to was an older man. He probably old enough to be my father, because I was only about 20 then, and we were talking about the fact of where we lived, and he told me that he had been in the German consulate in London, and he spoke perfect English, and you could tell he had some culture about him because he talked. But this old boy from Georgia sidled up beside me and says, "We're on our way to Berlin." This German just sort of laughed, says, "Well, we're on our way to New York." I've always remembered that one. That's one of my funny stories. And there's a certain amount of humor about in the war, even with all the serious and sad things you have. On another occasion, this same fellow asked a dumb question or said something dumb as far as I'm concerned. When the 5th Army tried to take Monte Cassino with a night attack, the 36th Division bore the brunt of that attack, and they experienced a lot of casualties. But we were a 750 bed evac, and that night they threw some 1,500 casualties on our hospital, and we had men just on stretchers outside the tents. We had no place to put them, but in the receiving tent where all the men are admitted to the hospital, or that's the formality they go through, all these walking wounded were around the edge of the tent, and it was full, and there was 2 German prisoners there, and this same old boy that had remarked that we were going to Berlin came in and asked this fellow that was working there in the tent, one Cookie Levant, and Cookie was a Pennsylvania Dutchman that spoke German, spoke good German, and this Red Harlan says to Cookie, says, "Ask him who they think's going to win the war." And Cookie says to Red, "Hell, they'll need to look around." Because there we were, 1,500 casualties and 2 German prisoners.
Did you all have any relationships with the civilians to mount anything?
Yes, quite often. I was of course, I had another good friend that I forgot to think about, Alfonso Almedola. He was from Buffalo, New York. He was strictly a Italian. He may belong to the mafia now, for all I know. But Al kept the outfit supplied with liquor, and he would go out in the cities and buy liquor and sell it to the officers and nurses and the enlisted men too. But he was a character, if there ever was one. And I've lost my.
About the civilians, did you all?
Oh yeah. Al would get us a meal out every now and then with some civilian family, and we'd go eat with them, and it was a good experience. And the fact is, got on up into Verona. We were Verona, Italy, and we went over to Verona one day and ate with this Italian family, and they served us fried eel. A hard time getting it down. Of course, I ate snails one time in Casablanca, just to say that I'd done it, but of course, Casablanca was strictly French, and you got the French atmosphere there.
Were those Italian civilians, were they reasonably, were American troops reasonably welcome?
Yes, very much so. They were very friendly, and of course there was a certain element of people there in the north that clung to Mussolini. But of course, I remember we were up there in northern Italy when they caught Mussolini and hung him up in that filling station by his heels with his mistress, and I've got a picture postcard of that showing all those Italians hanging in the service station with the girl hanging right there with them, all hanging by their heels, and that's sort of a collector's item. It's in this file somewhere. But
Did you all have any contact with Allied troops, British or
Well,
Australian?
we had a British ambulance corps that stayed pretty close to us through Africa, and I got well acquainted with a couple of those British boys, and even had some correspondence with them, and even got a postcard or two from their parents for a few years after the war, and then we kind of lost out. But I'd about forgotten about my French family that I spent so much time with in Casablanca. They the first Christmas that we were overseas, Christmas '42, and there was a little English boy that lived there in the neighborhood, and I used to enjoy hearing him speak because he spoke the King's English, and of course we were camped right in the middle of a residential section, but he came over there one day before Christmas and said there is a French family that would like to have 2 American soldiers come for Christmas dinner. And there was another, Earl Johnsmer, and I said, Johnsmer, let's grab this right quick. They said Presley could speak some German. I said, I've got enough German we can make out. But we grabbed that, and we went down to their home, and they were a nice couple. And they're people about my parents' age, in their 40s. And they had an older boy and a younger boy, and the older boy was about my age, and we sat down at their table, and I wasn't getting very far with my German. Of course, Mr. Eefnar was a bright-eyed little fellow. I always remember him, and every now and then we'd hit a word that we understood, but just out of a clear blue sky, this older lad sitting next to me says, I have had English in the school for a year. And I thought, God, they used to speak a lot better English than I do German. So, but we ate Sunday dinner with those folks the next 9 months that we were in Casablanca, and it was a delightful experience. And she'd fix us a 7-course meal every Sunday, and that was. And food wasn't too easy to get then.
Sure.
Of course, we were stealing everything we could out of the mess and taking it down there and helping them as much as we could, but wasn't a whole lot of stuff that we could get our hands on. But we always had a good meal and had a good conversation. But one time, Mr. Eastnar had been in the French Army, and he had this nice looking French Army cap and his tunic, so I put his tunic on and put his cap on, and we got a photograph in his uniform, and I sent the thing home, and Dick was here, and one of our Army buddies came along and asked Dick where I was, and Dick says, well, Frank's in the French Foreign Legion. Showed him that picture, and after the war we had him going for a long time. But it was a rather, of course, yeah, I had him crop and everything, and I've got a picture of that somewhere.
I hope we run into that.
Yeah, I've got it. I don't know where it is. I don't know.
How was the mail service?
It was good. I was mail clerk for a week or so, and that was a good experience. Our regular mail clerk, something happened to him, but that's when we were in Casablanca, and I had a bicycle, and I could ride down to the office in the morning and stay gone till that afternoon. I came back for the mail. So I looked around Casablanca and had some experience, but mail was pretty good. And of course that was something everybody looked forward to, mail. But I think one of the most interesting things that I did when I was mail clerk, they devaluated the franc, and everybody was out buying up. A lot of us had the GI money, and we were out buying up the francs and exchanging them 2 for 1, so which we could double our money. And there was a time or two when I took $18,000 to $20,000 down there to the post office and sent it home on money orders, And I didn't have a whole lot of it myself, but some of those boys gambled, and they had a lot of money. And when they devaluated that franc, a lot of them rich on it. But,
you mean when you sent home that much in American money, 18 to 20,000?
Yeah, those boys they had that much. They gained that much money from their gambling debts and what. I mean, their gambling winnings and whatnot.
Right.
Because see, they could forever, whatever francs. I can't remember what a franc was worth against the dollar. I think it was maybe for 4 francs to the dollar or something like that. But anyhow, when they devaluated, it doubled it. And so for every American dollar we had to exchange it for a lot more francs, and then we could turn right around and send it home for whatever it's worth. So however it worked, I mean, it's kind of hazy to me now, but I remember that there was an opportunity to make a lot of money. But I think about the funniest thing that I ever remember, and got off here on money. I'd almost forgotten this. In February of 1943, Life magazine published several pages of the occupational currency along with pictures of American currency. And there was a $20 bill pictured in that Life magazine, and one of our guys cut that $20 bill out and took it downtown and passed it on an Arab merchant. And now that's the first, that's about the only time that a GI got ahead of one of those Arabs.
Is there?
But boy, about 2 or 3 hours later, here he came with half the Casablanca police force looking for that guy. Nobody, I don't know who it was to this day did it, but that was one, and I've often remembered that. I mean, and thought about it.
You know, I talked about that anti-aircraft fire over Casablanca. Later on, the Allies, the Americans primarily, had paratrooper drops.
Yeah.
And the Navy shot 144 American ships down, airplanes down that night.
Yeah.
They learned someplace along the line to hit them because they sure did clean the Americans out.
That's something, man.
Yeah, I guess they were just told to, when in doubt, shoot.
Yeah. Well, you notice.
There had been a German air raid.
Yeah.
And they didn't, and these, of course, came in from the direction,
Yeah.
but they didn't take any chances. They
That's
just,
probably
they
up
were
there
all
on
full
the
of
English.
gliders.
That's up there on the English coast, I guess, wasn't it?
This was at Casablanca.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't aware of that, but I know that the Germans used, when we got up there at Oran, we laid around there for a few weeks, and they used to raid in there every night or so, and it was interesting to watch them throw that ACAP up and spot those planes, but they don't knock one down.
Yeah, they were trigger happy. I flew from the Azores into Casablanca on my way over, and boy, we were supposed to flare a certain flare, so we didn't know who they were. Well, the flare didn't work.
Wow.
And first thing I knew, boy, there were tracers on both sides of me.
Flag.
Yeah. Get down and get out in a hurry.
Well, I think about that ship that we lost out there, that this boy that worked for a journal went down on that was the Indianapolis, I believe. It was running with no orders, and it was almost at the end of the war, and somehow or other the Japs sank it in it. That should have never happened. I've read the book on it. I've got quite a bit of file on it. But
I don't believe I'm familiar.
It was the Indianapolis, I believe, but it was this fellow. He photographed the film, and he was an officer on that ship, and he went down with it.
Did you ever wonder what you were doing in the service and why you were over there?
No, I don't guess I really did. I just never thought much about it. I was always pretty busy and didn't get. Well, I got down the dumps a time or two, but never thought much about it.
Did you have plans for after the war?
No, not really. I wish, looking back on it, I wished I had done a little different, but I was engaged when I went overseas, and I was anxious to come home and get married, and I wished I'd gone back to school, but didn't. And
I make the same mistake.
Yeah, but I fared all right. Dick and I started the insulation business, and we made a comfortable living at it. Nothing to brag about, of course. I think that if I had my life to live over again, I would have probably been a high school history teacher, but it's too late for that now.
Did you have any feelings about the people who were draft age but weren't in service?
No, I never gave that much thought, really. I had a couple of friends that were not drafted. One of them was, well, they were close, and I never felt bad about it because one of them had, he had knocked his eye out with just flipping a paper clip one night, but he was better, with his mind, he was better off to be here in defense service, and the other fellow was 4F because of a physical. I think he had one of those fevers as a youth that caused him to maybe have a weak heart or something.
Yeah, rheumatic.
Yeah, rheumatic fever is what I was trying to think about. But no, I never did think much about that, and I don't know. I guess it might have been a time or two that I thought, well, how come I'm here and this guy isn't? But I really didn't think much about it. Yeah, well, I didn't know. I hadn't thought about that, but no, it didn't bother me.
How did the war affect you? Did it change you?
Well, it probably aged me a little, and it's probably I don't know that it changed me a whole lot. I've always been sort of a happy-go-lucky person, and I've kept that. And
Think it changed the country?
I don't really know. It may have. We were pretty well united in World War II. Of course, his old his name Lindsey Nelson said that's the last good war.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I guess it treated me was that it sort of being where I was and seeing what I saw as far as men die and men being maimed for the rest of their life. I've kind of had a feeling that there's certainty to war, and because I've often made the remark that I definitely saw the end product of war, and I've been in a few veterans hospitals since that on different reasons, and I had a young brother-in-law that died in the veterans hospital in Memphis, and it's depressing to go in there and see those old boys that are maimed and disabled and will never enjoy life, never enjoy anything other than lying in a hospital bed the rest of their life, and have some big nurse come around and maybe speak to them occasionally, but it's most depressing, and I wish there was another way to do it, but I don't know what it is.
When and where were you discharged?
I was discharged at Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. I went into Fort Oglethorpe. No. I came out of Indiana, I guess. Yeah, I'd forgotten. I came back to Boston. Yeah, I'd forgotten about it. We departed from New York, and that was an interesting experience, going down the Hudson River there and seeing all the big boats and everything. But we came back to Boston and didn't get to see much of the town because they no sooner got us off that ship and they got us on a troop train. On a troop train, and we were coming down through the New York and got it through Pennsylvania into Camp Atterbury. Now there were some German prisoners there at the camp. I remember them quite well, and they seemed to be faring pretty good. But they all spoke good English, and that didn't bother me much, but I was just anxious to get home.
When, you remember the date that you were, approximate date you were discharged?
Yeah, it'd be about October 19th, give or take.
Where did you leave from overseas to come back home?
I left from, I believe it was, let's see.
How did you miss it now?
I just, well,
I was changing.
I was new in the outfit and nobody knew me.
Mhm.
And I'd only been in that outfit about 2 weeks. And of course, some of them knew me, but the officers didn't know me too well. And they had me on the roster there one night, full guard duty. Well, I despised full guard duty. I just didn't want to do it. I'd rather do KB as guard duty. But I thought, well, I'm going to go down there. And when they called my name, I'm just not going to answer. And I think they'll call the supernumerary. Well, they called my name twice. Well, I didn't answer twice. Well, they called the supernumerary. That's the last time I ever had to worry about guard duty.
Well, let me see how I'm doing with this here.
And up through Italy too. All those little towns were pretty well bombed out. We went through a lot of them that really were bombed out. And I remember the first time I smelled dead flesh. We went through the little town that week. Moved up from Salerno. We went through the little town of Evacuation. It was a seacoast town, and the Navy had shelled that little town off just about shelled it off the map, and it was level, but we went through there and you could smell the dead flesh. Mm-hmm. And once you've ever smelled dead flesh, you'll never forget the smell.
I've always heard that.
Really? Then, of course, I smelled the 1st Ranger Battalion when we got up there to because they got wiped out and they were buried in shallow graves right alongside the road. That's our 1st Ranger Battalion. But that was sort of tragic. Here rifles were stuck in the ground, helmet hanging on them, and these shallow graves. And I remember that always.
This is the last question here, and I don't know if it makes a lot of sense or not. What could we have done better during the war? It's a many things.
Yeah.
If you could have done better,
yeah.
So it's just
I don't know that I've got a real quick answer for that question.
Everything could have been better.
Yeah, it really is. I think one thing I wish we hadn't have done, that was melt down those 2 big old cannons in front of the Knox County Courthouse and went out there to National Cemetery. Admiral Dewey brought those things, or had them brought back from Manila Bay, and that was something that should have been kept for its historical value, because I've often thought that those fine old cannons might have been one of those big tanks that went running by me one time, threw dust all over me.
I didn't know they melted them down.
Yeah, I sure did. They picked them up in the scrap drive, and it was a patriotic thing to do, but it was a ridiculous thing to do.
Yeah,
you remember those big cannons,
yeah,
I'm sure.
I
guess every kid that ever
that.
grew up in this town played on those things at one time or other if he ever got on the courthouse lawn. The process right now of trying to find out the actual date when they came in here, because I know that Dewey was in here in 1900 to dedicate a marker down there in the Concord area for Farragut's birthplace. It's on the little marker, and I know that he was the one that got the cake here, but I can't find the given date.
Yes, sir.
But I'll get to that someday. There's the at the Caserta, or the big palace there in Caserta, was this little opera house. I mean, it was right in the palace, and it was a nice opera, and the Scala Opera group came down there and put Rigoletto on one, and word came through the outfit there, anybody wanted to go to the opera, they could get on the 606 and go down there. Well, I thought, well, I'll just go down to the opera, so I went down to the opera, and there I was, sitting in Mark Clark's box on a gasoline can. And there's very few people that have enjoyed Rigoletto sitting in a gasoline can. One of those 5-gallon gasoline cans, you know. But that's about the only seat they had. But I'll never forget that. One day when I was there at Camp Grant, and they rented. There's a good picture of our outfit taken up in northern Italy.
All right, that is
good. I think I've got a picture of the Anfield Hotel, but I'm not sure. When we camped back there in the hotel. Here's another picture that we put two cranes together.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we were right below Florence. Well, I remember we were along the creek one afternoon and heard this landmine go off, and there was a swimming hole down the creek from where we were. This little kid had gotten into it. They brought him up front, hit, and one of his legs was just hanging by a tendon and just swinging around, you know. Made me sick. Here's a picture of 3 Knoxvillians. That's John Murray and John Moore and Frank Johnson somewhere in Italy.
Yeah.
John Moore was with the cash register company. He married. Who John Moore married? Nick? Yeah, Mary Lee Morris. Did you ever know Mary Lee Morris up there at Knoxville High School?
Oh, thank you so much. Must not, the name sort of familiar.
Yeah, I heard she lived out there on Fairfax Avenue. Her daddy was with the tire company, Morris
Yeah,
and Henley.
yeah, I knew
Mary
her
Lee
dad.
Morris.
Yeah, I didn't know her, I knew her dad.
Yeah.
Morrison?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's,
Let's see here now. This stuff. Is any of this material that you want to leave up there permanently, or do you want it all back?
well, no. I don't know how to answer that. Probably I can leave it up there permanently. I might want that book back.
Okay.
But the pictures of, they could probably, would they be where we could look at them if we wanted to sometime?
Yeah, all you have to do is call up there and tell them that they're coming.
Yeah. Will they be in a special collections area?
Yeah,
Yeah.
up there on the second floor.
I'm into there quite often. I enjoy
Okay.
that.
Just let
Now
them
you're
know.
talking about the old library.
Yeah, the old
Yeah,
Austin's
that's
library.
where I feel at home. That new one, I have a hard time finding my way around in.
I've got,
Big.
I've got these photograph albums to be returned.
Okay, yeah, I probably won't throw it back.
Yeah, and this 8th evacuation. Be good if we send all this stuff back to you. Copy what he wants.
Okay.
I think it'll work better to photograph, albums be returned, back books be returned, miscellaneous papers.
Now, Richard, you're left-handed. I'm left-handed too. We make out that all.
Yeah, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Miscellaneous,
Over here, Sunday, 1644, Church Hill in the Gall. That in Maracay. Yeah, I've been
let's see, is that your diary?
there. Uh-huh.
Trying to find it?
Yeah, I was in one of these folders. I knew it was from something. I had a trip to Switzerland too that I got in here.
You might consider leaving this thing, particularly some of the stuff in this diary,
Mm-hmm.
to the university. He can give his right arm to get his hands on this.
Well, let's just put it over there then, because I haven't looked at it in a coon's age, and I don't know that my kids care anything about it.
You want to put the diary permanently?
Yeah, let's just leave it over there.
Okay.
That's something he'd like to have
Oh, yeah.
permanently. So I saw a diary that a Civil War soldier had written down in Chattanooga, and it belonged to an old lady, and she was almost senile when I saw it, and I wish I found it again tonight. It probably got thrown out in the trash when she died, and it was a big treasure because this old boy had been in Washington when Lincoln was assassinated and had notes of seeing Lincoln's funeral procession going down to the train, something like that. You know?
Yeah.
Well, I had a picture of the picture back on the Anfield Hill. I found that. The hotel.
Oh, yeah.
There's the 8th back. You might as well take that one on 2 hands. You want to take this forward?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now here's when de Gaulle was there in Casablanca. My French friends made these pictures for me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good picture of De Gaulle. And there's other pictures here. There's a Muslim outfit that they used to march to a weird little drum and pipe tune, you know.
Yeah.
Boy, those French officers used to, boy, if they got out and they'd hit them right in the face with their fist, you know.
They would?
Yeah, they were mean to them. Here's my French family. I've got to find that picture. I don't know where it is. It's got off some. This adjutant was named King Cop, and he was a sharp-looking guy, but he had a very well, he just wasn't at ease around anybody, because I think he comfortable around anybody that had any raising. But his name was King Cop, and he was a nice-looking officer, but he was walking guard duty up there on Anthony Hill right there, and he was an officer of the day, you know. And he had this old boy that could throw his voice. And we were in the mess tent there, and we were about 30 feet away from him when he came up there, and this old boy would say, "Hey, King Cop!" And he'd be looking down there. Had him going crazy.
You a native Knoxville?
Yeah, I surely am. Here's an interesting picture. Here's some Italian desert equipment that they used when they were fighting the Ethiopians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I remember seeing this type of equipment in the newsreels before I went off to the war.
See that picture you got in your hand?
Right there. That's the three Knoxvillians.
Oh, yeah.
Picture of two Italians. They were police officers or soldiers. One of the Carbonaries, I think they call them. The parade ground at Caserta, where the Royal Italian Air Force School was.
The Royal Italian Air Force.
Yeah, well, that's where they were,
Yeah,
at Caserta. That's where I got all this crystal work.
Was that thing, had it been in operation?
Oh yeah, they operated out of the palace. That was the headquarters. Fact is, there was a old plane hanging up there, a pretty good sized Italian bomber, and then I believe it was may have been a tri-wing plane like the Red Baron flew in. I believe it was one of them hanging up there. But, we couldn't get it. We couldn't send it over souvenirs. Here's a picture of a little German cemetery just below Monte Cassino. I nearly got myself killed taking a picture of it. I went to the front one day. I had no business up there. But I snapped these pictures, you know, and some big old artillery sergeant came up out of nowhere, and he said, "Don't you know they're looking right down our throats over there?" And about that time, here came a German plane out from behind the mount, you know, and another kid was there with me. I don't know where he came from, but we got down alongside a concrete bridge here. In fact, this was trying to get in it. But he strafed that road.
He did?
Yeah, he sure did. But this little German cemetery was right there below Monte Cassino. And that's a sort of a rare picture.
Yeah.
Really. I saw one pair of legs sticking up out of the dirt when we were moving up. I don't know whether they were German or Italian, but they were. They'd shelled that area pretty hard. And horses, and the Germans were pulling their artillery with horses up there in the mountains. I never saw so many dead horses along the way. I mean, horses, bunches of them. Pictures of Rome. Picture shot from the top of St. Peter's. That you weren't supposed to take the camera in there.
Oh, was that right?
Not really. But I had this little camera. I could carry it out of my pocket. And that's a good picture, taken with a camera that small. But so help me, after I got home, I saw this picture that was supposed to be an exclusive picture, made in 1945. I had that boy beat by a year, but he didn't know it. I made this in 44. This is in the parking, not the parking lot, but the rotunda, which is quite a famous building there, and that's not a bad picture. Here's some German artillery that I pictured. There's an 8 there.
Oh, yeah.
That was a beautiful gun, that 88.
Yeah, it must have been.
That thing could put the fear of God in you, I understand. But they were rebuilding these guns just across the ways from us, and I went over and took these pictures. And I think these are some they developed in the X-ray. This one here didn't develop too yet.
Food and a bunch of those fellows were talking about problems in the Middle East and one thing and another. The radar people were eating
Yeah.
one thing and another, especially the Air Force. I said, you can have all the training in the world. And I said, so you've been shot at. When somebody trying to kill you, I said, you know, that's when your brains turn to crap when that's your
Really? Really?
Yeah, I said, you know, I said, if we get in the shooting war over there, we're going to take some terrible losses till we get bloodied a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And those troops, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just like it was in North Africa. You get wiped out,
Really?
you know, for a while
Mm-hmm.
until you understand what's going on and that sort of thing.
Here's an interesting picture that I made in Florence when I was in Florence. My brother and his wife made a trip to Italy a couple of years ago, and they sent me this postcard. His pictures are still in his house already pictured.
Yeah, that's it. Isn't it?
Yeah, really.
Sure.
Of course, there's a pretty print that I hate to admit how I got that, but there was an officer that I guess it's all right. I've talked to him on the phone one time. There's somewhere, but somehow he got knocked up a page.
Yeah, those things happen.
Yeah,
in wartime especially.
He had it rolled up, you know, and I just didn't know what I had. Here looks like I might have been drunk when it took that as it was. I was trying to get a shot of the Pontivecchia there in Florence. I got some pretty good shots of it.
Yeah, you've got some.
I got on top of that dude. That's sort of an eerie feeling to walk up
I'm
there
glad it is.
and feel that. Feel it leaning. Think, well, boy, this thing's about to fall before I can get down. Here's a good shot of Clara Booth when she visited us. Time and again, I meant to send that woman a copy of those shots because she was a beautiful somebody in more ways than one. Yeah, she was a beautiful somebody. And I never got around to it, and then just a year or so ago, she's dead. This was in a little church across the way from where we were one time. I don't know where I shot all these little kids. They were somewhere along the way. But here, this was Headquarters Street. It was raining up there now. It was a muddy day.
You know, I had a couple rolls of 127 color film.
Yeah.
That I used over there, and it's still pretty good today. It's amazing how well those colors have held up.
I had 2 rolls of slide film.
Is that right?
When I was in Northern Italy, I've got a few pictures in Northern Italy, and I've got quite a few pictures in Switzerland that are in real good shape. But I just never did. I never did get into slide photography too much. I didn't. I started to do a slide show the other day. I'm working on Sanders' raid. When he raided through here during the Civil War, it was quite a. And I thought, well, I'm going to put all this on slide. I'm going to go up here in Kentucky and trace his route as close as I can. Of course, part of it you can't get over now because there's no road there now. And then, of course, but I photographed the track from almost North City all the way into Jefferson City. But I've done that on slides, but I don't know if I'm going to get into slides again or not. Now here's General Truscott.
What kind of a camera are you using?
I just use that little Canon Instamatic. That's hard to beat. But this Kodak Phantom was a good little camera. Okay, it just shot 8 frames at 828. Yeah. But you could pull that little thing up, and it's about so big you can stick it right in your pocket. But here's Colonel Dreisch.
I had a little old German camera I picked up someplace, and it served me well. It made excellent pictures at pretty good little lens.
There's Northern Italy. We were 44.
We got back and we drove to Miami on our honeymoon, and I had that camera in the glove compartment. I went upstairs and I said, uh-oh, I better go get that camera. And it was gone.
How about that?
I mean, I hadn't been away from it 15 minutes. I get it's the dog tag.
No, that's I found that dog tag in northern Italy. We went up back where we camped one time, and their plane had crashed up there, and I found this tag, and I've never followed up on it, but I ought to do that someday. Charles L. Grubby. The old boy may have lost his life in that crash.
Huh.
I just don't know.
That was so.
Mm-hmm. In that whole big display of pictures, you'll find some dead Germans. There's one old German there that's sprawled out alongside the pathway, and he's got a potato masher there, and he's pretty close to his hand, and of course his skull is, I mean, his skin's pretty well parched off of him, and he's getting to be a skeleton almost.
Mm-hmm.
I saw him, but here's that plane right here. I found that tag close to where that plane crashed, and that was in fact where camp was one time. Of course, there's our headquarters section. There's over there keeps pretty good types too. There I'm on a peak in the mountain somewhere in northern Italy. There's a big tank that was abandoned along the way, and here are German prisoners coming down the road there in Verona. And there's one of those big howitzers. That's a big dude. I'm telling you what. Him with a big track vehicle. Let's see now the Anfa hotel picture. You got it. Then. Well, you're going to take this album here too, aren't you? Already?
Yeah, I'm going to take if you let me have them, I'll just take
that album.
I'll take the whole thing, and then I'll return everything except your diary.
Yeah, you keep the diary.
I need to get you to sign 3 forms.
All right, I'll do that. Now this is below Florence. We were alongside the river there, below Florence. It's one of these that was one of the main highways there. But
there's just 2 forms.
What about this dog tag? You reckon that he'd like to?
Yeah, he might like to have that.
Let's send that along.
Okay.
Let's see now this picture here. Did you want it? For the 3 Knoxville. I'm just going to put it in here.
Yeah, okay, let's put it in.
There's a whole pack of loose pictures here that were taken throughout northern Italy, and these are grapevines that were on the hillside there above where we were camped. A lot of pictures there. Oh, here's the Mussolini picture.
No, yeah.
I'm sure he's seen that, but if he hadn't, put it down. I think I typed a message on there. Can't remember what it said. I actually saw that station in later days, but I didn't get to see him hanging up there like that. They wiped him out.
Yeah.
I sent that to Dick, and now I know why I did. Says Dick, you will recognize the Doocy and his mistress in this picture. He's copying her. So if I send that to Dick, well, we'll let that go too.
I'll put those things in my brief.
Well, why don't we just put them all back in this box, and you just take the box and all.
All right, okay.
And then you'll have everything.
That's fine.
Everything with my personal letters, and that'll take 2 or 3 boxes.
Okay.
I don't know whether we get into that today or not. I think we've about covered the waterfront today, don't you?
Pretty good shape, I'd say.
Well, as much as I like to talk, I enjoy doing things like this.
Oh, I've learned to really enjoy people and talking to everybody.
Here's says, "Don't lose World War II" will be the topic of a lecture by Dr. Charles Johnson. I stuck that in there.
Right.
I'm just going to leave it in there.
Okay.
Because it was all in this corner.
You know, he's one of the most popular professors over there.
Yeah, I like him. I got to hear him speak one time to the